we will be recording this, and as I said, feel free to turn your camera off if you're not comfortable with that, but when you do ask questions, we would ask that you turn your camera on. Hello, my name is Tamsin Elliott, and I am a project officer at the for Westinvest Communications and Engagement team. I will start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we meet today, and also the lands upon which the Westinvest projects will be delivered. I pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging, and I acknowledge any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples that are present in the session with us today. I welcome everybody else here today, acknowledging that we all come from different backgrounds and a wide range of organisations. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. This information session is an opportunity for you all to have your questions answered about the grant application process. Obviously, we're well into it now, and with 2 weeks to go, we expect that a lot of you are very close to finishing your submissions. So it is a really good opportunity for you to have any of those last minute questions answered by our team. The team that are joining us today are Alison Morgan, the Director of the Westinvest Program, Mark Kay, the Director of the Grants Program, and Sonia Ramke, the Associate Director of the Grants Program. And also Joanna Vaughan as well, she's the Director of Communications and Engagement. In previous sessions, we've always opened with a look at the 5 assessment criteria. We're not going to go into that today. That information can be viewed in any of the sessions from 1 to 16. It's about a 15-minute introduction into the 5 individual assessment criteria for the grant applications. This session, we're just going to launch straight into questions because we're so far along the process. We just thought we'd just get into it and maximise the time for you to ask questions. So as per usual, or if you haven't joined a session before, we just ask you to raise your hand by clicking on the reactions button in the top toolbar there. And I will come to people in the order in which they ask questions. And we just ask you to turn on your camera, please, if you wouldn't mind, and quickly introduce where you're from, just to get an idea of who's asking what questions. Just going to fix this situation with my mouse. Excuse me for 1 second. All right, so we do have one question waiting. Okay, General Manager.
I thought you were going to say Sean.
Could be any one of the 3 now, couldn't it?
Go for it, Luke.
Yeah, so Luke, I'm from the Penrith Valley Regional Sports Centre at Penrith. My question, I have 2 questions. Yeah, we are getting towards the end. And I'm probably going to attend every session from now on because I love hearing what others have got to say as well. So it always gives you ideas. So it's been very valuable. So thank you very much. My question is, I've got 2. The first one, and I've just written them down. There was a session about provisional sums. We have and I guess contingency. We have a situation where, for example, car park, which is part of what the infrastructure that we're asking to be built, because it just has to be a part of it. We have some information on how big that should be, but I guess there is some concern that it might need to be a bit bigger, but obviously that increases the amount that we have to put in for that particular line in the finance request, I guess. We've thought of putting it in as a risk line under contingency, calling it a risk. Like, what's the best way to put that in? Because it's not something we want to spend, but it's not contingency, or so well it is sort of contingency, but it's a risk that instead of, like, for example, you need 400 spaces, you might need 600, and that might come back through the DA process. Is there any advice on how we could put that through? So question 1.
Look, you're certainly not the only applicant, I think, who's grappling with this, and it's part of the fact that we are asking for grant applications at what is quite an early stage for many projects. And we do understand that not every project is fully scoped. People don't have DAs in place. So I think the best thing you can do is lodge your application with the budget and describe it as based on the most solid information that you have now. And in the business case, you can tell us, we've made these assumptions now.
Yep.
And therefore, we've requested X amount of dollars for the car park component or something like that. In your risk section, you
Yes.
then should definitely call out the fact that you don't have a DA, that there
Definitely.
could be
Yep.
changes to the design element. And so that then leads you back to the budget, which is then your contingency, as you quite rightly said. So in the budget, you put in the amount that is based on the best evidence or advice you have at the moment.
Yep.
But in your contingency, you may want to make that a larger contingency than you would otherwise in a normal project do, because you have a number of unknowns at the moment. So if those all link together, if your description, if your risk profile, if your budget, if your contingency all links together for us in a coherent story, we can then get a sound feeling for where you are in the project and some confidence that there are key things that you still know need to be lodged. Now, contingency being contingency, you're right, it will push up what you're asking for in terms of dollars.
Yeah.
But given that we're funding at 100%, and we can clearly see what you've got in there, and clearly we won't give you the contingency money if you don't need it.
No,
I think that is the best approach we can take given the circumstances at the moment.
Okay, no, that's okay, and that's sort of where my head was at. But I just wanted to ask the question because there was something about provisional sums for. I think we just said that's contingency, and but I couldn't recall the exact. Okay, no, thank you.
I'll just point out that in the business case and in the forms, we also have section 5.4, which is legislative regulatory issues and approvals. So any approvals that you need, including DA approval, should be documented in there. That should be linked to the risk statement, and then we can draw a clear line between the approvals you need and what types of risks might flow out of the need to secure those approvals.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we definitely have that information. And actually that's what raised the issue. We started getting a bit closer to that information, and then we're like, oh, that might happen. We better be careful here. Yeah. So no, thank you. That's good advice, and that's good. We're on the same. We're thinking right. I guess question number 2. We have a group of people who have very nicely given their time to our application for nothing. Fantastic. We're very lucky. We've got great relationships with people. These people there's sort of this, I guess, mutual agreement that and these guys have worked on us on a previous project and gone through some level of probity, etc. As part of the application, the question we had was, is there a competitive tender process if it's over a certain amount or something, where these people have helped us through the application, and our best intentions are to include these people who are engineers and QS, and these people have given us so much time and help, but basically for no risk of no return. Now we obviously want to use them in our project, and we're making comments about that in the application. But is that something we should very clearly spell out and talk about, that we understand that there might be a competitive tendering process and that sort of stuff? Like, does that make sense, what I'm trying to ask?
It does make sense. And I think the answer to that's the first time we've been asked this question. The answer to that really is that the policies and procedures that you would apply are those that apply to your organisation. So we would sign the funding deed with you, and it would be the rules, it would be the policies, it would be the procedures that your organisation requires that would apply. So we're not imposing, say, New South Wales government tendering requirements, local government tendering requirements on any of our applicants. It's your organisation that is the funding organisation.
Yep.
So we would expect you to apply the rules that would be normal for you And that may look different from one organisation to another. I mean, obviously, there's an expectation that everything will meet the law and be above board.
Yes.
But some organisations will have ongoing working relationships with professional builders or suppliers or contractors or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's probably the first answer. There is also an opportunity for you in your budget to sort of call that stuff out. So if any of these organisations are proposing to offer you in-kind support going forward,
Yes.
and many of our applicants are community organisations that rely on volunteers, there is an opportunity in the budget for you to call out that there is an in-kind contribution, which so your budget may not, for instance, include the cost of a quantity survey because you have someone in your community or on your board who are providing those services free of charge. So there is an opportunity for you to call out that in-kind contribution to the project as well.
Excellent. No, that's fantastic. And yes, we follow pretty much like council probity process here, so it's pretty above board anyway. So that's great. You've answered a really tricky question we sort of didn't ask before, and I didn't see it, so apologies.
No, that's fine.
I'm happy to let someone else have a go and I might think of more. Thanks.
Good.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Thank you. Enoch, we've got a question from you.
Hi, there might be some background noise. It's school holidays and my kids are around.
No problem.
I'll keep it real quick. With the budgeting, I think we are kind of okay with the process of budgeting. But one of the things that we have realized is that because we could not come up with a proper engineer plan for the construction because of time restrictions and also certain uncertainties in the structure. What we have done is come up with a budget with prediction of what cost per square meter. So would that be, is that okay, or are you guys looking for something? Yeah.
Look, you're not the only organisation in that boat, can I say? We absolutely understand. I think our advice to you is you need to give us the most accurate figures that you can at the moment based on where you are in the process. And as long as in your business case that you explain to us about where you're up to. So you may need to, we talked in the previous answer about explaining about approvals and things that still need to be done, explaining about risks. So if you can say to us that based on either your previous experience or other organisations' best advice from the market, per square meterage, this is the cost that we are expecting. And then you need to put the fact into your timelines, into the approval section of the business case, into the risks, that you still need to have final drawings done. You still need to do a quantity survey. You may still need to have engineering reports to give you advice about how the building needs to look. So we can only ask you to give us the very best information you can at the moment. And then we understand that there will be certain steps you'll need to go through once you know whether you're going to be approved for funding or not. Anything else, Mark, to add to that? Sonia?
No, I think you covered it, Alison. Sonia?
Yeah, probably just a reminder to include the costs of those professional services in your budget.
Sure.
You need to pay for those as you go along.
Okay, so those professional services can be serviced through the funds that we get from Westinvest.
Yes, they certainly can.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I was under the impression that, look, I've gone through FAQs, but still I get confused sometimes. So
if you've incurred expenses to get what you have today, that won't be covered by the funding. But as Alison has indicated, all of those formal processes that you'll need to go through to get those formalised costings, the engineering reports, which you will need if you are approved, the cost of those reports are definitely within our funding parameters.
Got it. So that would include a DA application as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And it's really important for us to understand that you know all of these steps that still need to happen. And when we look at your project plan, it's quite clear to us that you understand absolutely, I'm here in the system and I need to get to here, and here are the things that we need to do. So, yeah. And if all the costs are included, then that's how we would look at the funding.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Enoch. Natalie, you've got a question?
Hi everyone, Natalie Hanna. I'm on the PNC at my kids' school and we're applying to upgrade our school hall. I've got about 3 questions. One might be a quick one. In the example business case 3.3 strategic alignment, I noticed that that's not in the online form of the Smarty grants. Does that mean that we don't fill that one in?
Natalie, hi. How much are you applying for with funding through Westinvest?
It's under 1 million.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you actually don't need to answer any question on strategic alignment if you're doing that category A business case.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay. No, that's good. Thank you for that. My other question is, part of it, we want to put air conditioning in and solar panels on the roof, but I just found out that the Department of Education that look after the solar panels, and under the Solar My Schools program, what they do is they might provide half the funding and then we have to come up with the other half. Do you think that's acceptable if I can sort of cost the solar panels and then put 50% of the cost under this application and just explain that we would expect the Department of Education to fund the rest of it in order to deliver it? Because I think they want to own that process, or do you think it's wouldn't be in this scope at all?
No, that's certainly an appropriate way to do it. And so again, back to that budget, when you go in and have a look at the table and you can click on it and there's different categories of spend and you put your dollars in, there's the cash, and then there's other co-contribution section. Correct me, Sonia, if I'm wrong here, but that's right. Yeah, no, I'll let Sonia answer this. But you can make it clear in that budget about what you're asking for in the money from us, and what else is coming from another source. Sonia.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Alison. And Natalie, when you're filling out that co-contribution section of the table, and thanks, Joe, for putting that up now. So this is the broader budget, and you'll see here you've got the expense categories, the line items, the funding that you're asking for Westinvest, and then co-contribution or in kind. So that's where you'd put the amount that you think that the Department of Education are going to contribute. And Joe, if you could just scroll down a bit to the next section, which is where we do ask you more questions about that in kind or that contribution, co-contribution support. And this is where we ask you to unpack that information a bit about that contribution that Department of Education is going to make. So what the source is, who it is, what type, is it cash, is it in kind, another grant, how much it is, and then if you can attach some supporting documentation just to verify that source of funding.
Okay. Yep. All right. No, that makes sense. I don't know if I'm going to get much from the department in the time remaining, but we'll see what we can do.
And if that's the case, when you attach something, you can maybe attach your letter that you've written to them saying, we're doing this, we're applying for the 50/50 funding outlined in your process, blah, blah, blah. Just something that we know that you're across it, you're working on it, you've got a reasonable expectation that under their policy you should expect to get that funding.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's really good. Thank you. And then I think my other question is really similar to the other two. I guess we're getting a concept plan drawn up by another parent, so it's in kind at the moment, and just checking that that level of detail is okay. We think we can cost that based on the expertise in the group.
Yes is the answer. That's the best you'll be able to get in the time frame we've got. So again, as long as it's quite clear to us, what you are, and then when we look at your project plan, we can see clearly that you've stepped out that you need to have final designs, engineering reports, all the other things that are likely to be needed before you actually either get your DA approved or get a shovel in the ground and get started. So
okay, no, that's really good. Thanks everyone.
Great, thank you. Good questions. Does anybody else have any questions as we go along. Luke, did you have another one you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I just thought of another section, and I just wanted to check. There was a section in the grant. So ours is over $1 million. It's the category B, and it's a pretty large project that we're looking at. I have a PMP background, so I'm a project manager trade. It asked for a project management plan. And obviously, being a community organisation, we don't have a project office or anything. We're planning to bring in a dedicated project manager, even though I am one. We just need that support because I've got to run the day-to-day stuff and everything else that we do. But so we've budgeted for that and done all that. But there's a section in there that talks about upload the project management plan. Now, I understand what that is, but if we're going to appoint someone, can we just comment, I think it's below, and talk about our plan to appoint somebody? They will provide that plan as part of our intention. Is that what is, or is there something else? Or am I reading that project management plan wrong? Is there something else that's expected there? Just curious. Yeah.
I think there's two elements for you. The one is the actual project management plan itself with the key milestones that we're expecting to see be met. And so we definitely want to see that.
Okay, yeah. Timeline.
But the other way then is how are you proposing to implement that? And so what you have outlined is absolutely what we want to hear. The fact that as an organisation, you recognise that you need to bring in expertise. I think you should be outlining in there the fact that you have internal management skills to manage projects. That's an important element. And some organisations would be able to outline the fact that they've managed infrastructure projects before, so we're looking for confidence that you can do this. But the fact that you say that you're going to bring in external expertise, we would find quite reassuring, and we would expect to see the costs of that reflected in the budget. But definitely we do still need to see, if you scroll down slightly there, Joe, please, to the milestones there.
Yep.
We really do want to see those key milestones and have that understanding back to our questions earlier, that you really do know what the key steps are that have to be met in order to get this project up and running and off the ground.
Okay, so that doesn't mean a project management plan. It's more about the milestones, because when I read that, I think of something much bigger, because of my background. So,
Sonia?
Look, thanks, Luke. That's a really great question. Joe, if you don't mind just scrolling back up again. Sorry for taking you all over the place. No, you're right. So underneath we've got where the heading is, we're introducing the project management plan concept, and we've got these dot points. And those are obviously the critical elements to a project management plan. So Joe, if you can scroll down again, you'll see here we've given you all of the space to give us that detail. So we're essentially helping you write a project management plan in this document. So that's actually what we're asking for, is to fill this out, because every piece of information here will, once you put it all together, be a project management plan. Now, you might have some other documents that can support this or provide some more finer detail, and you're most welcome to, of course, upload those. But really, the critical piece of information is for you to fill out each of these sections, because in their entirety, that will build your project management plan.
Awesome. It's just, like I said, I over thought it, and I think
that's fine.
Much bigger.
We have tried to make this as simple as possible to help draw out the information for our applicants. But that's a really, and I think you've got a good approach.
You do, and I think the other thing to remember, Luke, is that we're looking to assess your project across that deliverability criteria. So we need enough information to know that, and have the confidence that yes, you know what's needed to deliver this project. But this document will probably never replace the Microsoft project detailed Gantt chart that a professional project manager is going to use.
True.
They're for different purposes. Our purpose is to assess the deliverability and identify all of those key decision points that need to happen.
My background would have said that it's how you manage the project in its entirety, risk, everything. But you've just made my life so much easier by saying what you did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Christopher, you've got a question?
Hi, how do you do? I'm Chris
Hello.
Mason from Endeavour Energy. So I'm supporting an application in the Penrith Kingswood area for community energy infrastructure, and we're just trying to work out. There's I guess a group of partners working on this project, and we've progressed past the EOI stage. We're trying to work out who the best primary applicant is for the business case submission. We're just wondering, is it even possible now to actually change to a different primary applicant following the EOI, or would that void our application?
Yeah, it will. Look, the short answer is no, because when the ROI, the registration of interest, was lodged and assessed, we assessed, is this applicant eligible and is the project eligible? So generally, we are not allowing people to swap out one partner, one lead agency for another lead agency. We are expecting the agency or the organisation that lodged that EOI or that ROI to be the organisation that owns it, and we will sign the funding deed with. Now, if there are some absolutely, well, the term in the guidelines is extraordinary circumstances, we could possibly consider allowing a project to lodge a new ROI, a late new ROI, but it would have to be absolutely extraordinary circumstances and something beyond the control of the group. So once that EOI was lodged and you said this is going to be the lead organisation, you are locked into that.
Okay, thanks. That clears it up. I don't think we've got any such extraordinary circumstances. It's just working out who's going to be, in terms of the governance and responsibilities, who's going to accept the funding, how it's going to be apportioned out to all of the organisations.
Right. So we would expect the lead organisation for the EOI to sign the funding deed and be held accountable for delivery of the project. The governance arrangements with other partners that you put in underneath that and behind that is really for you to determine.
Okay, thanks. That's clear.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Okay, has anybody else got any other questions? Anybody may have joined us late. Just raise your hand if you have a question. It's really a good opportunity to have our team help you with any of these last minute questions as you're going through the process. Now's the time. Just a reminder that applications will close at 5 p.m. on Monday, the 25th of July. So it's really important that you get all the information into that Smarty Grants application form, and just remembering that sometimes attached documents can take some time to upload and attach. So don't leave it to the last minute. We really recommend that you do make use of all the time you have now to get it into the system as soon as possible. We do have a few more information sessions scheduled. We're doing 30 of these, and the last one will be on the 25th of July at 9 a.m. So that's the morning of the day that applications close. But yes, we do recommend that you do as much as you can before that time and don't leave it to the last minute. If you do have any other questions, you can email us at westinvest@dpc.nsw.gov.au, and we will answer your question within a day, usually. We will get back to you as soon as we possibly can on the email. Otherwise, if there's no other questions, we might give everybody their afternoons back. I'll just do a last shout out. Natalie, you've got a question?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm just finding it a little bit confusing, the difference between, say, like the community needs rationale for investment, transformation, and the 6 focus areas and location. I mean, I feel there's naturally a little bit of overlap, but are you able to just kind of maybe give me like a guidance? What are the main aims of each of the section?
Sure. So where we're looking for the community need, we really are asking you to sort of establish why would this project be done? What is it that's important about it? And in that section, we've also got some options that you could consider if we were not to do it now, if we were to do it later, or not do it at all. So we're really wanting to know in here around what is it that's so important about that particular project. Is that sort of rationale for investment? And it obviously comes back to the fact that you've identified some kind of a problem or a deficit and you're looking to address it. And we would expect that in there you would start to address what the livability questions are. So keeping in the back of your mind the 5 criteria that we're going to assess these against, livability and therefore benefit to the community is going to be one of them. In other sections, of course, we ask you questions about transformation. Is this a transformational project? And we have different criteria around transformation. And we've given you in the guidelines and in the application form some clues, some ideas around how you might address transformational. And remembering that transformational can apply to either a local or a particular community group, which indeed may be relevant for a school. It can be transformational across a whole LGA. It can be transformational across a whole region. Some projects are going to be transformational. So there's different scales. And here on the screen now you can see, and these are outlined in the guidelines, these are the different elements. Now, when we look at assessing your project for how transformational is it, you don't have to necessarily have show every single one of these. These are to cover quite a broad range of projects, but certainly at least one of them you must identify for us so that we can have a look. So is it something that's going to provide enduring benefits either now and into the future? Is it enhancements? So we're interested here about stuff that brings really significant or exceptional increases in those livability outcomes, in those benefits to the community. Enabling, does it act as an enabler with other projects? Is it some opportunity that's there now? We've got to jump in now and grab it, or we may lose it. And something that's sort of not normal, not business as usual, that otherwise it's a great idea, but there just isn't any other identified source of funding for it. It's not something we could normally get up and off the ground. Now, not everything will be relevant to every project, but any of those elements that are, you should explain them to us in that business case. Does that answer your question, or is there anything?
I think Natalie might have mentioned the focus areas as well, Alison.
Sorry.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So your key focus area, I'm assuming, will be school modernisation. So I think that should be quite straightforward for you.
I think I also ticked community infrastructure.
And that's possible. Many schools allow some of their facilities to be used by a broader community, and if that's the case, then certainly that
sure.
Tick that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, the focus areas, a lot of our projects will overlap more than one. Some will be quite, specific, but many will overlap. So that's fine as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Yeah.
I might just say that it could be useful to start with the section 3.4, which is the outcome logic map, because it allows you to clearly articulate at a high level the community need, work through everything that you're going to be inputting into the project. To get to the overall outcomes, and how you define those outcomes in terms of how much they will transform your community will really help you go back to that transformational section of the business case and fill that out, linking to those outcomes that ultimately we will be assessing to define the benefits and how big those benefits are of your project.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Does that answer that, Natalie? You're good with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Alison, you'd mentioned the base case do minimal and do later or something, living in community needs. But I think actually in the online form, or at least in the example, they actually put it later in the section. Does it matter?
Yeah.
I might defer to Sonia.
Yeah. Look, Natalie, and this is exactly the point I was going to make. You might feel while you're doing your application and you are answering all of the questions online, the business case, you might feel as though you're repeating yourself. And that's okay, and you're doing the right thing. Because it will depend on the question that's being asked of you, the type of response that's needed. And you might find that you feel like you are, oh, I thought I talked about this earlier. And you may have, but it'll be a different slant for that reason, because we're asking you a different question. So, well, whilst you thought it sounded like that's what you'd say up with community need, yes, there's a section there around, why, value for money, or, where you're talking about transformational benefits. So there will be times when you're feeling like you're repeating yourself, and that you are absolutely on the right path.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good. Good. I just didn't want to bore you to death, really.
No, it's all good.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. Luke, another question from you?
Yeah, I figured I'd take the opportunity. Sorry, everybody else.
So, no, it's a good idea.
I spotted in the online Smarty Grants, it asked, and it's just a strange question. A copy of your business continuity plan and a risk appetite summary. That's just what our organisation has today, not in the future. Just making sure I just wanted to check that. And risk appetite summary is just the high level, summary of our risk, low for safety and people, and it's just the high level summary. I figured I'd ask while we're here.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And so it just tells us a lot about the governance and internal arrangements in managing your organisation. When we come to look at assessing your internal capacity, and do we feel, if we're going to hand over millions of dollars to an organisation, we are making certain assumptions, and we're looking to assess how well do we think that this project will be managed? Does the organisation have capacity to deliver an infrastructure project, which is a complicated project to deliver? So, and so the business continuity and your risk appetite does help us get a better feel for how your organisation runs, how sophisticated you are about thinking around these things, because to take on an infrastructure project is a risk for an organisation, and we want to know that your organisation's done some thinking about it. So,
yeah, and I guess, I wasn't sure what purpose they were for, but I figured it was more for showing organisational experience and whatnot. The business continuity plan, it's pretty light, as you could imagine, in a sporting centre. There's not a lot that can go wrong, but there's still things that can. So yeah, I just wasn't sure if you were looking for the something more for the future infrastructure, because that will obviously, it'll expand once we start it. We'll obviously look at it and redo it and everything, as you do. Procedures, everything. So
yeah, no, we're not expecting you to have the business continuity plan for your eventually built and fully operational new piece of infrastructure ready just yet. That would be asking a little bit of most organisations. But the fact that you have a business continuity plan now, and also we're looking for, have you then taken into account the fact that you now have this extra management responsibility in an approved project, and a lot of extra money and a lot of extra activity going on. So there's questions there around, how well is your organisation ready to manage that project?
And it's a risk, right? Something goes wrong. Yeah. COVID was a great one for us. Yeah.
And the rest of the world, you're quite right.
The rest of the world, yes. Okay. No, it was a bit of a side thing. I just spotted it again, and I thought, I might ask. Yeah. Okay. Might help others.
No problem. Yeah. Thanks, Luke. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? Any last minute? No. Okay, great. Well, look, thank you everybody for joining us. This session will be online, so you can come back to it and check the answers again if you wish. Otherwise, just register for any of the next 5 sessions, sorry. You're welcome to register for one or all, as many as you wish. But good luck, and don't forget that deadline, 5 p.m. Monday, 25th of July.
You got to hit the submit button. Don't just save it, hit submit.
Good point. All right. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your afternoon.
All. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.